sexist, but that isn't what you've taught, is it? You've taught girls that all they've got to do is play victim, and everybody is expected to drop what they're doing right fucking now and do exactly as they want. This is not okay. Being a male does not make me evil. Matter of fact, the majority of the evil acts that I have seen in my lifetime came from women and their decisions. When you blame men because you only date assholes, you are the problem, not the assholes you date. Our society says men are supposed to ask the woman out, and the woman gets to decide. So, if you are dating somebody who is an asshole, that is a choice. Lying about a man when you don't get what you want right when you want it, with the intent of having him harmed, with the intent of gaslighting him, or even getting him physically abused or killed. This is what we've taught American women, isn't it? This is what we have taught girls and boys. You teach that boy that that girl only hit him on the playground because she liked him. So now you've taught that little boy that if people abuse him, it means they like him. And you've taught that little girl that it's okay to go running around hitting people. You got a fucked up way of thinking, folks. Most of the people who are speaking up about this, we've got people in foreign countries speaking up about it. India, Australia, Great Britain, New Zealand, Canada. Strangely, here in the United States, we silence all those voices. This great and wonderful American land of freedom and opportunity. For who? The majority of dangerous jobs go to men. The majority of physically taxing jobs go to men. Four out of five violent murders are against men. We also got to consider that there are so many murders by women, they're not counted because it's poison. Sure, it still counts as murder, but it doesn't count as violent, like gun violence or beating somebody to death. We also have a society that'll make excuses when a woman harms a man instead of going to the cops. A man has to be afraid to go to the cops. A woman does not. Men account for the majority of the homeless for a reason. We're talking about over 85%, over 95% in some places. That's because there are 15 female services for every co-ed service. You know what co-ed means, right? It means that service is not just for men. It's for men and women. That means there are 15 services just for women for every one service in Boulder County, for every one service that's for both men and women. So they get access to 16 different services where the men only get access to the one. We go to domestic violence places that very specifically state on their paperwork, it still shows their bias. When it comes to sexual assault and abuse, these things say her, her, her. You guys want to get offended because people don't say them, they. But then you very pointedly, in your actions and in your memos and in the way that you try to infer that the female is the victim. Men win custody in only 10% of their cases. Women are still far more likely to win custody. We've got a lot of women who don't want to see it that way. A lot of the women who came onto my site and onto my Facebook and offered to help, it's not because they wanted to help. It's because their kids were taken and they wanted a voice. But many of these women, after years of listening to them, I come to realize that they should have never had their kids. Their kids would be better off with the father. There's girls that I went to school with that didn't see their fathers until they turned 18 and were surprised to find out that the reason their father wasn't a part of their life was because they supposedly raped her. I'm sorry, your mom went in court. You weren't allowed to speak. I wasn't allowed to speak. Your mom claimed that I did this, and that was the end of it. She got a protection order, and I wasn't allowed to see you or your mom. Not allowed to contact you, not allowed to call you. I knew one father had to check in with his probation officer the day he met his daughter. He knew her before that. He'd been her father up until she was about 14 or 15. But people change without a father or without a mother. We get to see in these situations how men and women who promised that they would help me dragged their feet about speaking up. Dragged their feet about finding anything out. My friends didn't care, but a bunch of strangers did. A bunch of strangers who heard about me from the internet and only heard one side. They don't look at any of the evidence, and neither do you. Because I have a penis, I must be guilty. The way that I'm treated by the mental health system as a homeless person is horrible. But it's come to be expected because, well, homelessness is a man's job. 96% of those killed by police every year are men. 60% are homeless men. Yes, men account for half of our population, but the homeless only account for about 600,000. Primarily men. Then I'm told many women, even here, have told me about services that are for only men. They're only men's services. I looked them up. First of all, there was a men's only service here. There really was. It wasn't actually a men's only service, though. When you go to prison, when they release you, they put you in a halfway house, or they're supposed to if you're convicted. I wasn't convicted. I didn't get a halfway house. I was literally in prison without even being charged with a felony or being found guilty of anything. They had to drop the charges and let me out of prison. That's right. I was in prison for turning in my predators. How often do women go to prison for turning in theirs? You get to hear how everyone talks to me, how they talk over me, talk down to me, or I explain the situation, but they want to interrupt. Or I get into a part where I'm able to explain stuff pretty decently. But then, of course, they want to make a suggestion immediately afterward that shows they didn't hear a word I said. Only their suggestions in their head matter. That one little nugget that they want to say. Oh, I've had them moments where I've got something that I want to say, where I'm listening to some fucking quack job going off for 45 minutes about how horrible men are. Really, all I want to do is say, hey, men are the most victimized people in America. We're the most likely to be shot. Homeless men in specific, especially if you can call them mentally ill. Because when you call a man mentally ill, you are painting him as a predator to everyone. When we go to these services that are supposed to be for men and women now, well, they still have women's names. have the word women in the title, primarily women who work there, and those women do not treat you very well. They want to do the same thing as everyone else, disrespect you. See, that's what my friends did by talking over me and making suggestions instead of finding out what's going on. They were being disrespectful. The same thing with the cops, selling their own narrative over the top of it, being disrespectful. That's one of the first signs that people do not respect you. One of the first signs that they're not going to help you, that they're not your friend, they're not your family, is that they treat you with disrespect. Well, I am a mutually disrespectful asshole. I used to live by the belief of the golden rule of treat others as you want to be treated. No, that'll get you fucking raped. That'll get you beaten. That'll get your name slandered. That'll get people to gang stalk you, especially if it's a pretty female who starts it. You get to see how we have taught women to play on these bias in order to control men. In order to try to blackmail them, because they know, and every woman in America knows this. How many of y'all men have been blackmailed by your wife or girlfriend or mother or sister after she did something fucked up to you? Playing on the nobody's gonna believe a man because everybody wants to believe that men are hateful, uncaring animals, and all they really exist for is to have a bank account and fix your things. Your porch is broke. A man should fix it. You can't afford the materials. A man should pay for it. Men work, on average, a lot more overtime hours than women do. When you take a look at those overtime hours and how much those men are paid, if you take away those wages and you put them at equal footing with women, on average, they earn about $1,000 less in a year. $1,000 less than women. But you don't want to hear that. You don't want to hear that men are paid more than you because they're working harder and longer hours. They are working physical labor in most cases. Labor that tears your body apart. And when we get off of work, it's, hey, fix this, fix that, lift this, lift that. Hear about my problems, hear about my problems, hear about my problems. I'm a female, I deserve to be heard. I deserve to be heard, I'm a female. I'm a female, I have rights. That's right. You have the right to play victim and have innocent men harmed because you did wrong. You're a fucked up person for being that way. Not your victims, you pieces of shit. That includes pieces of shit cops, pieces of shit public, just straight pieces of shit friends. You get to see how men are treated, especially disabled homeless men who have no support. Women are more likely to get help in a domestic violence situation. They're more likely to come forward because men are blown off, and we get to hear time and again how police officers blow me off. They send me to mental health who blows me off. So I need an advocate. I get pretendy advocates, people like Kara Johnson Miles, who pretends to be an autism advocate. In reality, she was just one of those web sleuths who was gaslighting me with the Bollingers. But then again, with all these people I show that evidence to and claim they're gonna this and they're gonna that, in the end, do they ever? Of course they fucking don't. You're all sexist, every one of you. You change one word, and it's magically okay. You blame all men, and magically it's okay. You can't say anything about women, can you? Not on Facebook, not on YouTube. You cannot tell about the crimes committed by you. as women, can you? Yes, you can. You can brag openly about destroying a man's life by lying. Brag about it on YouTube and Twitter and Facebook. Brag about it. And magically it's okay. Yours won't get taken down. But if I change one word, if I change the word man to woman, Facebook algorithms will take it down. YouTube algorithms will take it down. I'm not on Twitter or any of that shit. I have YouTube and Facebook, and that's it, because people help me to get that. I've got Discord because somebody helped me to set that up, and I don't have the ability to use it right now. Anyway, my channel is chock full of course, me being angry because people are very sexist towards men, especially homeless men. And you get to see the bias. You get to hear it in these people's own voices, even when they're talking nice. They're going out of their way to make any excuse to look away from things that are obvious crimes. People go to prison for the things that were done to me. People are in prison. Very, very large, major cases. Then we've got police officers who do this stuff. You pretend that all homeless people are doing this. When police officers talk about us, or the media talks about us, they talk about us as if we're all those people. How about you stop victimizing people who are raped and beaten into homelessness? And then if you put their aggressor in prison, when he gets out, you put him in our community. You put our predators in the homeless community that you forced us into for being victimized. Fuck this goddamn country. Well, this epidemic isn't just in the United States. This is worldwide.